Hi, I'm Cheryl Bruce. I'm just going to do a little tutorial this morning about using water-soluble graphite pencils to get a little tonal study, perhaps before you do a painting or as a standalone sketch in your sketchbook, or a frameable piece of artwork. Tonal studies are really quite stunning and often a favourite of mine. So I'm going to use this little scene from Norfolk Island because that's what I've been working on lately myself. And I was going to do it on just loose paper, but you know what? I'm actually just going to put it straight into my sketchbook because I had already talked about that I'm still working on filling up these pages. So I'm going to flip my book sideways and I'll do this sketch here. So I'll just put my phone there so that you can see the scene that we're drawing. This is not my favourite water-soluble graphite pencil. I'm going to use this one first because it's a little bit harder, comes out a little bit darker. I'm going to use it for the drawing stage. And then I'll come in with my favourite Art Graf pencils. I've got a 2B and a 6B. So my first step is just a very rough drawing. We've got a beach here. So I'm marking where the grass comes to, where the sand hits the water, and then a little bit of information in the sea, but not very much detail here. We've got a few more rocks, little rocky outcrop here. Our horizon is just above that land mass, but we have an island here. And my apologies that I can't remember the name of this. The back one people referred to as the Pink Island, but I think it was maybe Prince Philip Island, or just Phillip Island it might have been. So this is off from Norfolk Island, just near the cemetery. The cemetery would be just here near Emily Bay. And then we've got all these trees, and they're forward. Some are on the edge of the landmass and some come forward. So I want to make sure I don't put them all just coming from the very edge. There's some little short ones, and there's one that comes from about here. You can't see that detail in my photo, I don't think. So that's all I would think about in terms of the drawing. My page is a bit annoying that it wants to bounce up. So I'm just going to use a bulldog clip. That's better. Okay, so this is the lightest, my 2B. I'm just going to put a little bit of suggestion of cloud. And it's not possible to do a really smooth sky. Well, of course it is possible, but I would need to take a little bit longer to make those marks much closer together if I didn't want to see the pencil. And now I'm just going to build up tone. So this island is the furthest away from us, so it's going to be the lightest in tone. The one in front is a little bit darker. I'm still just using my 2B. I can come in with my 6B anytime I want to, but I tend to leave it until the next stage. I'll do most of the 2B. I've missed, there's a little bit of jutting out stuff. So the ocean near the back here does have some colour to it. And then I want to think about where this white frothy C is. So it kind of comes on a line through here. So I want to make sure I don't put much graphite down there. And then I'll come in and suggest this coloured water. And I'm working directionally, so the water's fairly horizontal. If I do lots of choppy strokes like this, the water's going to look more like it's windy and choppy weather. So there's a little bit, this is the sand, a little bit of wet sand, tone on the wet sand just there, and then the grass. So the grass kind of has some directional growth to it, and I might not put it all in as a solid mass like I have the water, so I might just suggest some grass. And I'll show you once I wet that. So I can work two ways. I could soften the sky in and then put these trees over the top, but I won't. I'm just going to get all of the initial pencil work in before I start wetting. You can add more pencil when it's wet or once the first wash is dried. And obviously I'm working fairly loosely. This tree's closer, so it's going to be perhaps a bit darker. Little one over here. And they all blend into each other in this area, so I don't want that to be really defined. A little bit of tone there, and a little bit of shadow. You also don't have to put colour lead down everywhere, because you can just move a dirty brush around and you will get you will transfer that colour. Now I realised I didn't get any water. That's unfortunate. Here we go, this will do. Can you see my failed attempt at throwing with the pottery wheel? And it looks like maybe I was making an ashtray, but it's not. It's designed that you put your brush across there when you're not using it. And you can see, you probably can't see, it's really dusty. Okay, so I'm just using, when I'm travelling often, I've got just one of these water brushes in my little pencil case that I have with me all the time. So that's what I'm going to use for this. So I'm just first moving water through where I put the colour, where I put the graphite down. And then if I want to, I can just come back with a bit of clean water and soften some of those edges, or I can leave them firmer like a dark cloud on a light sky. It just depends on the look you're after. I'm coming down just loosely with that cloud in behind those trees, in through the trees, but I wasn't thinking about painting the trees at that stage. I don't like how this cloud follows that shape of the mountain, the island, so I just want to make it look like the cloud comes a bit behind it rather than haloing the shape. So sometimes with these you don't actually need the water, but I just find it's quicker than squeezing it out. So for the ease of the demo, I'm picking up water. But if you're somewhere where you don't have water, the idea is you've filled the belly of it and you just squeeze a little bit. And I try not to make it super even. Like, I don't want that mountain to just look all one colour. I want to still create a little bit of variation. So I like that it's darker here. It's lighter in some areas, darker. If I want to add some darkness, see how I've just picked it up from a different area that I haven't yet wet, and sort of transfer some of that colour. And the same as watercolour, or if it touches somewhere where there's already moisture, that colour will travel. But it won't travel onto dry paper. So this island's closer to us, it's darker. We're also, if we were looking with our eyes instead of on a photo, we would see more detail. So I like that it's a bit brush strokey. I'm not going to smooth that out very much. I might add a little bit of that colour over to here. And now my water, the ocean near the back. I often like to just leave a little white skim around where water meets land like this. It gives you that sense that there's a little bit of a wave crashing just where it meets the rocks. Also lets you control the tone just a little bit more. So I've come to that line where where I had identified that the water is more frothy, but I don't want to leave it just totally bland like that. So with not much on my brush, I'll just run a little bit of water into that section. We've got a rock here. I went to move on to that, then I thought, no, that's attached to the land. I'll leave that just a little bit. I'll come into this water again here. And I don't know whether it's worth pointing out, you might be able to hear this noise. That's when you can hear me using my whole arm to draw instead of just my hand or my wrist. I'm not just moving my wrist around. I'm not just moving my wrist around to paint. I'm moving my whole hand for these strokes because I find that much easier and much more freeing in the movement. So I don't want this ocean now to be a solid mass, so I'm just tickling that colour in, thinking about the movement of the waves. And now I will come up into this land. This is where the grass comes down, just here. So I want to get that suggestion of something growing downwards. I need to add more colour into this section. I feel like it might be a little bit too light. But can you see there's also a path? So I'm thinking about leaving some parts white. I'll also think about the direction of grass in some areas and just, I don't think I can zoom, no, I can't zoom in any closer. But if I hold it up, it should focus in a second. So can you see then here I'm doing some vertical strokes to indicate the movement of grass. And then in other areas I'm doing horizontal, but thinking about the direction that either the shadow grows in or the direction of, this goes downhill as it comes towards the water. As you can imagine, there's often a rise, a bit of a dune. So I'm thinking about that with the direction I use my brush. I want to suggest that it's grass. If I make it a solid mass of a shape, how does the viewer know what it is? I will add a little bit more colour in here. Again, I'm stroking it in the direction that I'm wanting to suggest the grass is growing up a little bit of a dune. And then I can just re-wet that. Some of this in here was shadow work. And further back, we don't see the shape of blades of grass like we might down close to the viewer. So I wouldn't do much that suggests vertical movement up in there of the grass. So first I'm not just wetting this now like I did with the cloud or the sky. I'm actually reinforcing the kind of strokes that I put the pencil work down for the tree. So I'm thinking about that direction. I'm using my brush now as though it's got paint on it. And can you see, because I already wet these ones up here, not much more depth comes out of them. I might have to add some more. Pencil up in there if I want those to be darker. Again, as these are drying, if I know I've got a good amount of pigment on my brush, I'll come back and drop it in somewhere that I want to darken instead of washing it off the brush. To change it, I'll try to use it somewhere else. So I'm sort of dancing all over the artwork then. So remember, we never see, well, very rarely do we see the whole stem of a tree. We've got darker bits of leaves and branches that grow off the front and the back. So it's important to have some darker shapes breaking and softening that trunk up through the middle. This is this shape of wet sand, so I don't know that you can tell at the moment that that's what it's meant to be. I feel like it needs to be smoother here. So then you can come back in and you can add, if you want to have some areas that are darker. Sometimes I'll put the 6B down in that first wash, and sometimes I wait and add some more pencil. So you can see where it's wet, it smudges straight away. So you can put this down onto wet. I don't want to put it there because that's still light. This tree is close to us. But I'll come back to my 2B just to reinforce a little bit of these trees at the back. And my 2B here. I feel like this water is all very wishy-washy, so I might just add a little bit of colour to some part. You know, water gets lighter and darker. Soften that in. And you don't have to soften all of it if you've added pencil. Quite often I'll add it for there to be more definite stroke or cross-hatching or some interesting pencil line work. So I don't necessarily always add water to what I've re-added in terms of pencil. Not everything needs to have been softened. I would like just a little bit more definition perhaps and variation in that island. And often they're darker near the base, so I'll just add a little bit over here. And you can see I just touched into a wetter patch, so it's grabbed just a little bit. If it grabs into something wet, see how that's not really moving? It's not really softening. So you just embrace that little happy accident. Picked up the wrong pencil. And I'm just going to soften it across. My aim isn't for these to be smooth though, and I think that would be a little bit less interesting, so a little bit of texture and movement is perfectly fine. The other thing you can do is actually just pick up a little bit. If you're working in here and you think, oh, I just need a little bit of darker stroke on that, sometimes I'll do it as if I'm picking up paint from a paint pan. And if you're buying it as a set, it does come with a little darker pot for if you want really black graphite. So this little tin looks like this, and you would use this on its own, and it's darker still. I'm not sure if it says what whether it's 12B or whatever it might be. So you can add some darker shapes in, or you could just do your whole painting with this if you wanted to, just controlling the amount of water. More water obviously would make it lighter. The same with watercolour. Less water, you'll get thicker, stronger lines. I just don't like this white shape here, so thinking about composition, I want my shadows or something to just come off and link that. That's called linking the darks, but I want to just continue that diagonal direction a little bit. That's a little bit too strong near the edge, so I'll just soften next to it so that it softens out. And that's probably where I would leave that, although I think the water back in here needs to be darker. Oops, because I've wet it, you can see I'm dropping. That's because the pencil was wet on the tip. And I feel like these little bits in amongst the waves need to be just a little bit darker and directional here as well. Just making that more just making it more specific. Oh, and I had suggested a little hint of a wave here, and then I got sidetracked. So if I darken the back of the wave and smooth out the front of it, I might manage to get the look of a wave. And perhaps another one here. And I think once you've wet it, you can't really erase it. So if you see something that you've put colour down somewhere that you definitely don't want colour, erase it before you wet it. Once it's wet like watercolour, you wouldn't be able to move it. I wonder what I've done there. I didn't see that happen. Oh, it must have come off my thumb by the look of it. I've picked up some pigment and I've put my thumb down. So that's unfortunate. I'll try and erase that later, but I think, like I just said, if it's been wet and my thumb was damp, it probably won't come off. did, so that was good. So there's my little tonal sketch of Norfolk Island with Art Graf water-soluble pencils. So I hope that you have fun with them if you've got some and want to have a little play.